What's up, everyone? Welcome into the stream. We are going to be talking college football today. I am super excited to hop right into it with you guys. We're covering all the big games. We're talking USC, Illinois, Notre Dame, Arkansas. We're also going to get into Georgia, Alabama, Penn State versus Oregon, Auburn versus Texas A&M, LSU, and Ole Miss. If there's any games you'd like me to talk about in the comments, let me know what they are. I'm available to pretty much talk any and all college football. So let's hop right into it. Let's get into first the noon slate, and we'll talk about Arkansas versus Notre Dame. Now, Notre Dame has had an extremely heartbreaking start to their season, as well, quite frankly, as Arkansas. Both of these teams' tragedy has struck. Now, let me go ahead and clarify for starters. Tonight's stream, we're going to be talking about sides and totals. Tomorrow morning's stream for the games early on, and then probably later as well, we'll be talking about player props. I'll be doing all my research tonight. So let's hop right into this. Let's go ahead and start with Arkansas versus Notre Dame. As I pull up this, I'm going to go ahead and start talking about how Notre Dame, and as a matter of fact, we actually have a guest that will be joining us here in just a little bit. So we're going to start with Notre Dame, Arkansas. Already talked about the tragedy that has struck both teams. Arkansas, with just a couple minutes left in both of their losses versus Memphis and Ole Miss, they have fumbles that decimate their ability to put points on the board late and take the lead. Now with Arkansas, their offense is electric. Looking at their last 5 games, they are dominant offensively. Let's go look at the sides real quick because that's what we'll be talking about tonight. 56 points against Arkansas State. Oh, and here we go. We have our guest hopping in. What's up, Cam? How are we doing, my friend?
What's going on, Alexander, man? Appreciate you having me on. Look forward to talking some football tonight.
My pleasure. Go ahead and shout yourself out and talk about your channel real quick, and then I'll kind of explain the rundown of what we're doing here.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, I'm Cameron Gossett with Saturdays in the SEC. Me and my friend Carl Malone do a SEC football podcast every week. You can find us on YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, at Saturdays_SEC. That's the Twitter account. Then at Saturdays in the SEC on TikTok and YouTube. Man, I'm just super pumped about this weekend. And yeah, appreciate everyone. If you'd love to give us a like and a subscribe, we really appreciate it.
Hell yeah, brother. I am pumped for this weekend. I mean, it's going to start at 11 a.m. and it's not ending until the very wee hours of Sunday morning. So let's hop in. I was just now getting started talking about Arkansas and Notre Dame. I mentioned both of these teams filled with tragedy, right? I mean, Notre Dame at the end versus Texas A&M loses that last second touchdown, and Arkansas, versus Ole Miss and versus Memphis, with a chance to win the game, they fumble twice, and that's it, and it seals their fate. So my question to you is, what do you like about both of these teams going into this game?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, what I'm kind of expecting, it was such a letdown for Arkansas a week ago against Memphis. I mean, just a game they really couldn't afford to drop. I'm really expecting some points to be scored, to be honest with you. I mean, Arkansas defense, nobody expected them to be great defensively coming into the year, but I think it may be even worse than maybe what was expected. So, with Notre Dame too, obviously with Marcus Freeman there, we know they're typically really good defensively. I think maybe giving up a few more points than people would expect early on in the season, albeit they played some great opponents so far. So kind of expecting some points to be scored in Fayetteville tomorrow. It's going to be a great matchup, though, and a game that both teams really need to win. So I expect desperation mode from both teams and to kind of keep their season alive and on track.
Yeah, I kind of view this game for Arkansas as Sam Pittman is coaching for his job. I don't think he'll get fired on Sunday, but I think this will be in the nail in the coffin because, I mean, looking at their schedule, they're 2-2 already, and they've only played one SEC team. So, I mean, we're not even into playing, LSU, Who else do they play on their SEC schedule that I can think of off the top of my head? I think they got to play Texas A&M, right?
Yeah, I believe so. I'm pulling
Yeah.
it up right now.
But anyways, why you pull that up, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about Notre Dame as well. I mean, this is desperation mode for Notre Dame. I think that their playoff hopes are also on the line. Arkansas is out of the playoff conversation, obviously, but Notre Dame, I think they can still sneak in as long as they win out, obviously, and then Texas A&M and Miami stay in that college football playoff conversation. Then those losses are combined by 4 points. They don't look nearly as bad as if they had gotten blown out like some of these other top schools, like Alabama, for example. So, with that being said, Arkansas at home, their offense is monstrous. I'm a massive fan of Talon Green. I think he tears it up. Okay, so specifically for these games that we're going to talk about, we're specifically talking about spread and over under. So, is there anything in this game in particular that you like? Looking at the spread of 4.5 for Notre Dame and the over under for the team total, or just for the game total, excuse me.
Yeah, as far as game total wise, I think I like the over, honestly, because the way both of these offenses are playing, and like I said, especially with Arkansas's defense leaving a lot to be desired so far this season, I think some points are going to be scored. A little bit, I think Notre Dame's going to want to try to run the football, keep Arkansas on the sideline as much as possible. So give me a little bit of pause, but I just really feel like both of these offenses are going to be able to click. From Arkansas standpoint, you highlighted it with Talon Green. He's been absolutely outstanding, albeit a mistake or two last week that was hurtful, but for the most part, he's been absolutely outstanding. And he's going to need to be again tomorrow against Notre Dame for Arkansas to have a chance to win. But I think I would lean that over total, even though it's a pretty big number at 64 there. But I think both teams are going to have to score some points to win this game tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, looking here at we're looking here at the season game log for both of these teams. The over for Arkansas has hit twice out of 4, and for Notre Dame, they're 2 out of 3. And even in this game right here versus Miami, where they were under that game total of 64, their offense didn't come alive until the fourth quarter, basically. And when they did, man, points started flying in that Notre Dame and Miami game. So I definitely think that this game could absolutely go well over this 64-point total. With Notre Dame's defense, I think the number one thing that I'm concerned about going forward, if I'm a Fighting Irish fan, is their ability to get to the quarterback. They haven't been able to do it so far this season. I think that their secondary has gotten a lot of flack so far this year. But so far, the pass rush to me is what is giving these quarterbacks just unreal amounts of time to get the ball down the field. And Notre Dame's defense is letting them do it at an efficient rate. So do you think Talon Green, with his obvious ability to extend plays, is going to be able to do that?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I'm definitely leaning the over for sure with both these offenses. I think they're going to have to score points here. So I'm really excited for this game, and it just goes to show you when this game is probably maybe the 7th best game tomorrow. It just shows you how stacked of a slate tomorrow is. It's gonna be unbelievable.
Yeah. All right. Well, so in this game right here, ladies and gentlemen, we like the over. If you're using the doinksports.com tool, be sure to check it out. By the way, go to doinksports.com. Use my code here down at the bottom for 25% off of any purchase. Let's go ahead, Cam, and we'll talk about the Auburn Texas A&M game. Now, I know your partner, Carden, there with y'all's podcast is feeling a little antsy about this game because that Auburn offensive line looked suspect, to say the least, last week. What are your insights into this game going in with Auburn on the road here?
Yeah, we talked about it on our podcast Monday night. Definitely a game, he's antsy for coming off the Oklahoma game. And when I first look at this game, it's such a bad scheduling spot for Auburn. You're coming on the back-to-back of a road trip. You haven't had a bye week yet. Texas A&M's coming off their bye at home. It's just a really brutal scheduling situation there for Auburn. So that it's going to make this one tough for sure. As far as the totals go, I'm kind of leaning over again. I feel like that's been the theme so far this year in a lot of cases, but I think some points are going to be scored in this game. I know Auburn has some injuries in the secondary as well. Horatio Fields, one of their starting wide receivers, is going to be out for a significant amount of time. So I think even though the offense has been suspect, I think there's going to be plays to be made there, and I think I've really loved what I've seen out of Marcel Reed and those two dynamic wide receivers he's got, and Mario Craver, a local kid here to Central Alabama, and then KC Concepcion. They have been outstanding so far this year. Can take the top off. I think that's going to be a really tough matchup for Auburn's secondary with them being banged up. But I think Auburn's going to have the opportunity to score some points as well. So I really like that 52.5 over.
Yeah, and I'm kind of at the beginning I was really leaning heavily on Texas A&M here. But I mean their defense so far this year, have not been phenomenal. I mean, obviously letting up to 40 points to Notre Dame, not necessarily to be expected, but I'm not necessarily surprised by that. But in these games versus Utah State and UTSA, the majority of these 20 plus points that both these teams put up were versus the first and second string. This wasn't garbage time touchdowns that were being scored. And so I was a little concerned about that. But like you said, the offensive weapons for Texas A&M just through the roof in terms of talent right now. I mean, KC Concepcion is probably one of the best all-around wide receivers in college football. I think was it last week or the week before that he returned a punt for a touchdown, which is not something that he's done with his time at NC State, I don't believe. And meanwhile, talk about skill position. I mean, Auburn still stands out to me, even without Horatio Fields, as a very talented skill group. Like I said at the beginning of talking about this game, I think the question is whether or not Auburn's offensive line is going to be able to hold up in this game. Oklahoma, man, they took Auburn's O-line for quite the ride there, especially at the end of that game when they started to pin their ears back. You think Auburn's offensive line is going to be able to hold up against this A&M pass rush?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a big question. And what we've talked a lot on our podcast as well is just there's times where I think you had a combination last week, like you said, at the end of the game in the second half, Oklahoma really pinning their ears back. Thought they got some coverage sacks early in the game as well, where Jackson Arnold, just the internal clock, not as quick as it needed to be. I think that's a big question going forward and I think that coaching staff has talked about, having confidence in your guys and being able to turn it loose on time. Even it may not be wide open, but as you highlighted, you got guys like Cam Coleman on the outside who won multiple one-on-one opportunities last week against Oklahoma. I think Jackson Arnold, too, is got to have that internal clock a little bit quicker, a little bit more confidence to turn that ball loose, give his guys one-on-one opportunities to make plays, because a lot of times they're going to be able to win those. I think it's going to be a combination of the offensive line, but I think Jackson Arnold can do some things as well to help those guys out and get the ball out of his hands a little bit quicker.
Yeah, so looking here, I know you said you like the under for this game. Looking at the spread specifically, you don't have to make like an official pick here, but what do you think about the 6.5? Like, what does that tell you going into this game?
If I had to make a pick, I think just based on the scheduling situation too, with A&M being so fresh, I would lean A&M 6.5. This is not one that I'm personally going to take tomorrow because it's just a little bit too much up in the air. But I feel like personally the line should be a little closer, I think. But I think that scheduling situation with Auburn coming off back-to-back, A&M being a lot more fresher from their standpoint, I think it's got this line maybe a little bit more than it should be, or maybe under a normal circumstance would be. But I would lean A&M just due to that. And I think, like I said, both teams are going to be able to make some plays on one another. I think that's going to be a theme of tomorrow, probably in multiple games that we talk about.
Yeah, so for me, I kind of looked at this line, and it's the exact same one from last week with Oklahoma. And we saw Auburn, I think they covered the spread. I mean, obviously they didn't. They lost 24-17. But to me, they covered it because they gave up that safety with what? Like, I think a minute left or less than a minute. So I'm looking at this Texas A&M team, and I'm thinking, how much better, if at all, are they better than Oklahoma, right? And I don't, with John Mateer healthy, obviously, I don't know if A&M is that much better. Offensively, I think their O-line is probably one of the best in college football. But when comparing that Oklahoma defense to A&M's, I think it kind of falls off a cliff there. I think Oklahoma's defense is elite, to say the least. I can't really say the same about A&M yet. So with that being said, I'm also leaning A&M just because, like you said, this is a brutal beat, honestly, for Auburn. The question is, honestly, did they even fly home from Oklahoma? If I was the coach or the athletic director, I would have just flown straight down to College Station, because why put your team on a plane 2 more times than you have to, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, definitely a brutal scheduling, situation here for Auburn. And that, like I said, I think under a normal circumstances, maybe the line will be a little bit closer, because I'm like you. I think the matchup is more favorable for Auburn than it was a week ago against Oklahoma. And to me, in certain ways, I thought they exceeded my expectations for them. I thought I did take Oklahoma to cover the 6.5, so I was happy to see that last sack, because it didn't look promising there.
Yeah, I did as well.
But yeah, I think overall, the matchup is more favorable for Auburn this time. But the way the schedule lays out, you get A&M off a bye, just really a brutal beat there. And so I would lean A&M, but I honestly don't have a great feel on the spread for this game. It's going to be really entertaining. And I think they're going over the 52.5.
Yeah,
I think some points are going to be scored in this game again.
I agree. I think if there's anybody for Auburn that is going to have to keep this game close, I'm looking, all eyes for me are on Keldrick Falk. If he can contain Marcel Reed, put some pressure on him, have him feeling a little shaky going into that second quarter, and making him rethink what he's doing in that third quarter coming out of halftime, I definitely think Auburn going into the fourth, maybe down a field goal or even tied, there's a lot of momentum there. And we saw this Auburn team last year with their obvious issues on offense put up, I think it was 44 or 46 points, actually 43 points versus Texas A&M, as we can see here using Doink Sports, looking at Auburn's game log over the last 10. So Auburn as well is covering a 7-point spread, 7 of their last 10, and A&M obviously playing SEC competition hasn't really done that often. They did it versus LSU, Mississippi State, and that's it as far as SEC opponents go. So this is a tough matchup for Auburn, but I'd like to say that they can cover that 6.5. But similar to you, Cam, I'm just kind of leaning Texas A&M here. Let's go ahead and talk about this LSU Ole Miss game right here. This is honestly, thinking about any other week so far this season, this would be the best game of college football. But I think, 100%. I mean, where are you putting this in your top 5? I'm putting it at 3 right now.
Yeah, as far as tomorrow games goes, and that just shows you what a loaded slate you have when this game is really the third biggest game of the day. Obviously, right. You got the two primetime games that we'll get to in a little bit. But, yeah, I mean, this game, like you said, in almost any other week would be the game of the weekend, the primetime slot there on ABC. Now, I cannot wait for this game. That 2:30 time slot, as excited as I am to get to 6:30 and those two primetime, the 2:30, 3 o'clock window is just unbelievably
it's electric.
Loaded. So yeah. And this is kind of the headliner of that. So yeah, it's going to be an unbelievable game, unbelievable atmosphere, I'm sure, in Oxford tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, I am super excited to talk about this game right here. Ole Miss, to me, I'm going to give you my rundown real quick. I think this game is must win for Ole Miss if they want an opportunity to go to the college football playoff. Not only are you playing a top 5 team, and that win would mean a lot later on with your resume, but thinking about their schedule, Florida no longer is going to be a quality win for them, right? I mean, by the time they play Florida will probably be a 4, maybe 5 loss team. But looking at some of these other big games for Ole Miss, they've got to play Georgia later this year, and that game's on the road. So looking at some of these bigger matchups that the Rebels have, in their season, those are big road games, whereas this is finally an opportunity to take this rivalry and take advantage of it. Meanwhile, LSU, I mean, this is an important game. This is a rivalry matchup, but I just think for Lane Kiffin trying to make his first ever college football playoff as a head coach, kind of similar to the Georgia game last year. I mean, a lot of people expected Ole Miss to get blown out in that game, and they ran over Georgia in that game last season, 28-10. So I kind of think it's one of those type matchups where a lot of people are questioning whether or not this offense is going to be able to continue to be so dominant, especially with the, I guess, I wouldn't call it a quarterback battle, I guess. I'd call it like a quarterback, maybe even controversy between Trinidad Chambliss and I'm blanking on
Austin Simmons. Yeah.
Yes, Austin Simmons. Thank you very much. The master's student at the age of 19. So anyways, Cam, talk to me about what you think about this game. What are your initial thoughts when looking at this matchup?
Yeah, no, I agree with your assessment totally. As far as Ole Miss's hopes to get to the college football playoff, I think this is one that you absolutely have to have. Kind of an instant classic game last year in Baton Rouge. I mean, these teams have had some unbelievable games over the last handful of years.
Yeah.
But yeah, honestly, a great situation for Ole Miss to be in. Austin Simmons not back to 100% yet. You got Trinidad Chambliss playing at an extremely high level, doing an unbelievable job operating that offense right now. One of the points that we talked about the other night I'm a believer in LSU's defense. I mean, they went into the pool, they attacked, got a lot better in the secondary, getting guys out of the portal. I mean, they played excellent football this year. I think the only thing that I'm questioning is just I know they've improved a lot, but just how much, and they haven't faced a challenge of the opposing offense like they're going to get tomorrow with Ole Miss. Obviously, they had a good test against Clemson early on. Obviously, that doesn't look as good as it did 3 weeks ago going into the season. Clemson offense is a mess right now. Same thing with Florida 2 weeks ago. Florida comes into Baton Rouge, turns the ball over 5 times, which a ton of credit to LSU's defense. But as we've continued to see, Florida's offense is also a mess right now. And they're in a tough situation with Billy Napier's status. But so I'm just curious. They haven't faced this type of offense yet that's executing at this high of a level. So from LSU's offensive standpoint, they haven't needed to score, upper 20s, 30s, into the 30s yet so far this year. I think this is a game they're going to need to do that. Are they going to be able to do that to the level they need to is the big question for me. So I like Ole Miss in this game, -1.5. I think it probably should be a little bit higher, to be honest. In Oxford, the way they're playing offensively, I just don't know if LSU at this point is able to execute at the level offensively they need to in this game. Haven't quite seen it yet. But it's going to be super, super interesting. I mean, it's unbelievable atmosphere, I'm sure, tomorrow.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I see the game pretty much the exact same way. I'm thinking about this LSU offense. I was in a lot of my previews that I talked about earlier this summer, I talked about how LSU's defense, like you said, is going to be so much better this season, and they have been. They've been excellent. I mean, the question is whether or not they faced a real challenge. Looking at some of these games last year where Texas A&M's hanging 38, Alabama's hanging 42, even that Florida offense last year with DJ Lagway not being great per se, put up 27 on them. I definitely think we saw some improvements closing out the year last year. Baylor still was able to put 31 on them, but where I'm really questioning LSU right now is just their offensive execution. There are so many talented skill group guys on this team, but where they're not getting any push is on the line of scrimmage, right? I mean, they can't run the ball. They can't establish the run. They had that one break off versus Florida at the end of the game. And Brian Kelly, he's got quite the attitude, calling the media spoiled for questioning LSU's offense, even though it's been unbelievably suspect. I mean, looking here at the game log here, Florida they only put up 20. And I think 7 of those points were off a pick six, right?
That's right. Yeah.
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 So, I mean, 13 points versus a Florida team that turned the ball over 5 times. That's incredibly bad. And so that's my major concern here for LSU moving into this game. Can they actually put up points? Now, Ole Miss, when they've actually played a decent offense in Arkansas, they did allow those points. So I kind of think this one's going to be a barn burner. I mean, the over under 57, that's still kind of a high total. But I mean, looking here at this LSU rivalry, the over under, I think, has hit 3 out of, or maybe 2 out of the last 4 times. Let's see here. Yeah, I mean, 104 points in Oxford 2 seasons ago. And that's kind of what I'm thinking here. I lean Ole Miss just because they're at home. It's really surprising to see a lower ranked team with a favor here, but the home field advantage is just so serious here. Looking at what questions do you have about this game that need to be answered for Ole Miss to win this game?
Yeah, like you said, it does concern me a little bit. I know Arkansas's offense is really good, but to give up points the level that they did in Oxford a couple of weeks ago to Arkansas definitely concerns me. But yeah, I think the question for me, I guess, is more on the LSU side. I feel like their offense is what I need to see answer the bell, and they may have the opportunity to against this Ole Miss defense, like you said. Barn burner the last couple seasons, so I would not be shocked at all if we go over that total. I'm betting the spread on this one with Ole Miss, not the total, because I'm not quite sure about it. But as you just pulled up a minute ago with the totals, barn burner in Baton Rouge last year, incredible barn burner 2 years ago in Oxford. Again, we could be in that same scenario again, but I do want to see. Ole Miss's defense match up against this LSU offense. And I think a lot of questions will be answered tomorrow. Has LSU's offense improved? Has Ole Miss's defense improved a little bit? It's just still a good bit of unknowns for me. And I think a lot of those questions we'll have more clarity on, I'll say, tomorrow. But I agree with you. I think probably more important from Ole Miss's standpoint, just because, like you highlight, those tough road trips coming up the rest of the way. I think Ole Miss needs this, and I think they'll end up getting it done.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Ole Miss in the last 3 seasons, so 2023, 2024, and now in 2025, they've had, I think, they've had 19 home games in those last 3 seasons. And they've covered a 1.5 point spread 18 of the 19 times. Now, granted, we see Middle Tennessee, Georgia Southern, Georgia Southern, Georgia State down here. There's not a lot to write home about those stories. But, we see an Oklahoma team whose their defense last year, especially here in October, they were rolling. And Ole Miss was still able to pull out the victory. That Texas A&M team a couple seasons ago had some run. And Georgia last year was probably the biggest statement that Ole Miss has made in the Lane Kiffin era. I think they can get this done versus LSU. I'm also taking Ole Miss minus 1.5 here. I like their quarterback situation regardless of who it is, whether it's Simmons or Chambliss. Chambliss provides, that dual threat. Simmons is more of he's still kind of a dual threat, but still has got a better arm. I think Lane Kiffin has already decided. I actually don't know about this. Do you, Cam? Do you know if they've already picked a quarterback to start this game?
Yeah, Chambliss is getting a start again. Okay. So I think, Lane Kiffin's been saying when Austin Simmons is healthy that he's going to be the starter again.
Yeah.
So I think this is just one of those situations where I think they're slow playing it. Like, you've got a quarterback that's playing great. There's no need to rush him back if he's not fully 100%. I think that's kind of the situation you get in here. And like you said, it's definitely an interesting dynamic, but a great situation for Ole Miss to be in, because you've got, how many teams have 2 legitimate quarterbacks that they feel like they can win big games with? Probably not a ton out there. And Ole Miss is one of those teams, and I think they feel very good with that. The way he's played the last couple of weeks, I think, just gives them even more confidence that, hey, we don't have to rush Austin Simmons back and throw him in the fire, even against a team like LSU coming in. We got a guy that's playing great football and executing at a high level. So, yeah, I am curious to see how they play it. Like, does that end up being the case when Austin Simmons is ready to go? Do they insert him back in the lineup? It's going to be a very interesting question to watch over the next couple of weeks here.
Well, quite frankly, I kind of think it depends on how some of these games go for Ole Miss. I mean, if Ole Miss wins tomorrow versus LSU and Chambliss is the star for that offense, man, it's going to be really, really hard to take him out of that lineup. I will be shocked if Ole Miss pulls off a win this Saturday and then next week or the next week as well. It's going to depend. But here's my thing. If I was LSU, I would want to go against Simmons and not Chambliss. I mean, looking at their game log here, the games that they really struggled with last year, Jalen Milroe, Marcel Reed, even DJ Lagway, the dual threat ability has crippled LSU. And then looking here at so far what they've played against, Lagway didn't show any dual threat ability in that game versus LSU through 5 picks. I think what this LSU defense thrives on is having their opposing quarterback pass the football. And so I think if Chambliss gets in there, Lane Kiffin, obviously the offensive genius that he is going to draw up a masterful game plan to exploit that weakness there for LSU. So, we've talked a lot about it now. I think we're both pretty convinced of the Ole Miss -1.5. We can see here using our Doink Sports tool here. Be sure to check this out. By the way, guys, if you're watching the stream, doinksports.com. Ole Miss is pretty dominant at home. LSU on the road has been fairly suspect versus SEC opponents over the last couple of seasons. So I like the Rebels here in this matchup. If it was on a neutral site, I think I'd lean more heavily on LSU. But since it's on the road here, I like Ole Miss. But let's keep going down this slate. I mean, we got a ton of amazing action. Let's briefly talk about this Tennessee-Mississippi State game because a lot of people are thinking it's a trap game. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I really like the way this Mississippi State team's playing. I mean, both teams are playing at a high level right now. I believe this line opened around 9 or so, in the immediate. I've actually got money on Mississippi State plus the 7.5. It stayed pretty stable here the past couple of days. I think this is going to be a really, really competitive game. I just love the way Mississippi State's playing ball right now. They have upgraded so much on the lines of scrimmage from last year. It's just unbelievable job that Jeff Levy's done. I mean, you can't win games in this conference if you're not competitive on the line of scrimmage. And Mississippi State is in a much better place than they were a year ago. And I think that's exactly why they were able to get the upset win at the time over Arizona State a couple weeks ago. I think it's going to be a really, really competitive game. I've been really impressed so far with Joey Aguilar. With the Tennessee offense, not only how efficient and comfortable he's been, but I mean, this was a guy that came in during late summer and picked up this Josh Heupel offense almost immediately and looks more comfortable than Nico Iamaleava has ever looked in it, honestly. I mean, it's amazing how quickly he was able to come in, pick this offense up, and the threat of the vertical pass is backing in this Tennessee offense. I mean, people get confused. They think, this Tennessee, it's a high-flying offense, which in some cases it's a run-based offense. I mean, that Josh Heupel wants to run the football. They want to run for over 2,500 yards in a season. But this offense needs that explosive pass to be there and be able to execute it. You don't have to live off of that, but you need that threat and you need the ability to be able to execute that. The last 2 seasons with Joe Milton and Nico, they just weren't able to execute that at nearly the level they needed to this offense to be as potent as it can be. And that looks, so far, the early sample size this year, that looks like that's a back part of Tennessee's offense. And I'm curious to see if it's here again tomorrow afternoon in Starkville.
Well, Aguilar actually, if I'm thinking about players of the past, at least at Tennessee, maybe even in the SEC that he reminds me a lot of Hendon Hooker, right? And that's probably when Tennessee's offense under Heupel has been the best by far. And
Mhm.
you talked about Tennessee's want, need, and desire to run the football, right? It all depends on whether or not you can effectively execute the pass game. Hendon Hooker was able to do that. At times, you saw Joe Milton be able to do that. But what that does is that spreads defenses out. If you don't believe that Tennessee can pass the football, you're going to stack the box because eventually they're going to run it, right? And so with Aguilar's ability to air the ball out, it's what really opens up the offense and actually shows the identity that Tennessee is looking for. And what I was shocked by was the fact that they were able to put up so many points against Georgia. I mean, what they score in the first quarter, I think it was 20. Yeah, it was 21-7 against Georgia. And I just couldn't believe my eyes. I thought Georgia, at least defensively, was going to be much better than they were in this game. The fact that Tennessee was able to put up points consistently throughout the game, even into the third and fourth quarter, with a chance to win it there with a game-winning field goal, right?
Yeah.
That to me shows a lot about how much this Tennessee team has grown since last year with the new quarterback situation. But talking about this spread, Mississippi State, obviously, god awful last year. But one guy that really opened my eyes to what the Jeff Lebby system could be, it's Blake Shapen, right? He has played pretty damn good so far this year, especially in that Arizona State game, being so poised down the stretch. What do you think about him and how he's going to perform against this Tennessee defense?
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. He's been super effective so far this year. I mean, such a big boost for Mississippi State having a healthy Blake Shapen this year. I mean, they missed him a lot last year,
Mm-hmm.
and they've improved things on the line of scrimmage for him on the offensive line. So, yeah, I really love the way he's playing. Definitely think this is a game where, he's going to need to be really, really good. And I think another game where points are going to be scored at a pretty high level. But yeah, I love the way he's playing. They got off to a pretty hot start in that Arizona State game, kind of lost their footing a little bit midway through the second quarter till about the fourth quarter. Obviously, they were able to come up with that huge play late in the game to win it for them. But yeah, I love the way he's playing, executing this offense at a really high level, and exactly the type of quarterback that Jeff Lebby needs to run his system. And I'm excited to see what they can do against this Tennessee defense, who, like you said, is giving up some points. A couple weeks ago, they gave up a decent bit to UAB last week at home in a bounce back spot. So, I think points again are going to be scored here tomorrow in Starkville, and I can't wait to see this quarterback matchup.
Yeah, and one of the surprising spots of the SEC for me so far has been the Mississippi State defense, right? I mean, like you said, they got way better at or on the line of scrimmage. But one place that I thought that they downgraded was in the secondary. They lost several really good corners. I think they lost one of them to Texas Tech. He transferred out, and I didn't really see any talent coming in through the portal that, I guess caught my eye for a good term there, I guess. But this Mississippi State defense has been really outstanding to me. To only allow Arizona State 20 points and to be so dominant early on in that game, that was really impressive to me. They were a little suspect versus Southern Miss, but that was a Southern Miss team that is technically, honestly, what Marshall's team from last year, one of the best teams in the Sun Belt. They bring down their head coach, and he has, I think, 60-plus transfers from Marshall. So that Southern Miss team is a little bit better than people might think. I think so far Mississippi State has played great. To me, I'm kind of sticking away from this game in total. I know you said you got some action on Mississippi State. Would you say plus 9.5?
So I've got it at plus 7.5. I wanted to jump on it early, but it came down really quick after the line opened. But yeah, I've got the 7.5 for tomorrow. I'm a little surprised that it stayed here because I took that on, I believe, Monday or Tuesday. When I took the 7.5, and I'm a little surprised. I thought that may creep down to 7 or maybe slightly under 7, but it stayed right there at 7. I think it's pretty good value, to be honest with you. I would lean Tennessee to win the game, but I just think Mississippi State's going to keep this close at home. Wouldn't be shocked if State pulled the upset, but I would lean Tennessee outright. I really like the 7.5. I'm not taking the over under, but I do think points are going to be scored at a high level in this game. Like, kind of a theme, probably in the SEC tomorrow, to be honest with you. But no, this is going to be an under the radar game. But like, I'm definitely going to have my eyes on this one. I've got my device. I'm going to have as many devices open as I can. My TVs are maxed out. I'm going to have my computer going. You need about 6 or 7 TVs tomorrow afternoon to cover this slate.
Yeah, honestly, so I've got 2 monitors in front of me. I've got, I think, 2 or 3 TVs, and then a phone and iPad. So I'm going to have about 6 or 7 tablets, devices, monitors, TVs surrounding me. Because, I mean, how could I ever miss any of this action? I mean, I'm fired up about the Indiana-Iowa game that's happening. I mean, we won't get into that game because that honestly is not even cracking the top 10 for me. But man, oh man, I'm just so excited about this slate. But look, we've got probably about 20 or 30 more minutes here for this stream. Let's talk about the 2 big games. And we'll start with Penn State, Oregon. This is the game that I think Penn State and their head coach, their quarterback, they've got to get the monkey off their back. They've got to finally win a big game versus a top 10 team. I actually recorded a TikTok that I haven't posted yet, but I'll spoil it here. James Franklin and Penn State have not beaten a top 6 team, period, since 2016. Isn't that absolutely nuts?
It is, yeah. I mean, you're exactly right. This is a must win, like for as much as it can be for an undefeated team, but I think you may have the numbers here on Doink, but I think James Franklin's record against top 10 teams is 4-19, I believe, 4-20, somewhere around there.
Yeah, that's right.
4-20. So, I mean, yeah, if there's anybody that, especially for a guy that's a high-level coach, a coach that made the semifinals of the playoff a year ago, but this is a must-win game at home against a legitimate, Big Ten national title contending team in Oregon. Wide out. I mean, what more could you ask for if you're James Franklin and Penn State in this game? But yeah, I agree with you 100%. This is a game I view it as a must-win game as much as it can be for an undefeated team early in the season in a 12-team playoff. This is as must-win as it gets.
Yeah,
in my eyes.
Yeah, if I'm thinking about Penn State and their mentality, I just can't see myself being able to motivate a locker room after yet another major defeat. I mean, especially being favored in this game. I mean, we haven't seen a night whiteout versus a top 10 team for Penn State since, I believe, 2021 or 2022. It's been a long time, and you finally get that matchup versus an Oregon Ducks team that has lost 1 game since. Let me see and check this out of their game log here. Looking at Oregon's game log. Oh my gosh. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. They're 27-3 in their last 30 games. This is a tremendous opportunity for Penn State. And what my question is going into this game is this offense going to click versus Oregon? Because it did last year in the Big Ten championship game, but where we saw it lacking this year so far is with the quarterback, Drew Aller, who had a lot of NFL hype to start this season. We've yet to see him really live up to that potential. What do you think he's going to look like versus this Oregon team, who I think has been fairly dominant on defense so far this year?
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge game for him as well. I think he's got to be able to hit some plays down the field. This is obviously a Penn State team that wants to run the football with the duo of backs that they have, but
right.
This is a huge, as big as this game is for all of Penn State staff program. Like, this is a huge game for Drew Aller. Like, he has to show up big in this spot. You have obviously a great Oregon team, a super talented team, but they're pretty young, going on the road for the first time. I believe they played at Northwestern last week, didn't they? So I believe it's a back-to-back road trip for them as well. So
yeah, that's right.
a young team going across country again for a second week in a row, wide out in prime time. Yeah, Drew Aller's got to make some plays down the field, and how effective he can be, I think, is going to be the difference in this game. And I really want to see him step, because he's got to get to that next level for Penn State to get to where they want to go and be a Big Ten title winner and be a national championship winner, hopefully getting there at the end of this season. So, yes, it's a huge game for all parties, but Drew Aller in particular. And I want to see him make some plays down the field tomorrow night.
Yeah, and I'll add a little bit of more or not leverage, but some more stipulations in this game. Dan Lanning, who I think is a top 5. A lot of people argue top 10. I would say top 5 head coach in college football right now. He's actually, since being at Oregon, he's only 2-4 against top 10 teams on the road. And I'm throwing in that Georgia game in Atlanta in there as a road game, just because, sure, technically it's a neutral site, but that was not a neutral site game. So Dan Lanning's kind of got some questions about whether or not he can win these big time matchups. And when we see Ohio State in I think it was Pasadena, right? It was the Rose Bowl last season in the semifinal game.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, they took a massive loss there versus Ohio State. The score doesn't do it justice. Ohio State blew the freaking doors off of them, but they do have the record here to say, hey, we beat this Penn State team, basically this exact same Penn State team last year. What do you think are the differences between these two teams from last year to this year?
Yeah, I think as you highlighted, Penn State's one of the most experienced teams in the country coming back. To me, just the Oregon youth. You're taking these guys. I know they went on the road last week, but this is going to be a totally different environment tomorrow night. Taking a young Duck squad on the road. Dante Moore has been outstanding so far. They've been great through the passing game, explosive play rate, one of the tops in the country so far. So, I really love what I've seen this Oregon team, but they're more inexperienced than they were a year ago. So I want to see how they respond to this type of environment. Definitely more pressure on Penn State for sure, being at home. But I want to see how this younger Oregon team handles the environment. Dan Lanning, as you said, is one of. I'll say this: if I'm starting a program, he's one of my first phone calls. I can assure you that. I love the way he's able to motivate his football team. They're going to be prepared. They're going to be ready for this game. But I want to see if they face a little bit of adversity, which they've come nowhere close to facing the adversity so far this year. I want to see how they handle that on the road with a young football team. And that's what I'm going to be looking for tomorrow night.
Yeah, me too. I think that this Oregon team, especially with Dante Moore coming in, now he's had some starting experience from UCLA, but nothing like the magnitude that this game presents tomorrow. I definitely think if Oregon comes out and looks a little shaky, I think Penn State is going to capitalize that. Honestly, I think this game could get a little ugly, especially if Penn State's offensive line can win at the line of scrimmage and get Singleton and the other group or the other parts of this running back group on the ground. If they could get those guys rolling early, it's going to be hard for that Oregon defense to get off the field. Now, they've added a good amount of size to that Oregon defensive line. I'm thinking about somebody off the top of my head that transferred. Cam, you might be able to answer this better than me, but I believe Bear Alexander from USC and previously from Georgia is there, correct?
I think so. Yeah, I believe you're right. He's been at quite a few stops. I'm not sure if he has the eligibility left. He could be somewhere else next year. I don't know, but they definitely beefed up on the defensive line. Lanning being a defensive mind himself has built this team. Obviously Oregon's has been known, like more obviously they're on the West Coast, but more of a West Coast style team. Like Dan Lanning has built this roster to compete at the top of the Big Ten. They're fit. Obviously they have great skill, but they're super physical on the line of scrimmage as well. So they're great on the offensive line. He's built this team just like you see the top SEC teams, the top teams in the Big Ten. It's exactly where they're at, and they recruit at a super high level, but they're really, really good on both lines of scrimmage. And Dan Lang's done an excellent job building that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, both of these teams, usually sit in the top 10 of recruiting. They've had a lot of action in the transfer portal over the last couple of years. Okay, let's get down into like the bare bones of this game. Is there anything that you like? You like the spread? You like the over-under? What do you think?
Man, it's tough I would say, I guess I have not taken either one of these personally. Yeah. I'm going to stay away from both of these, but if I would probably lean that under. I think looks nice. I've been kind of hammering the overs. I feel like I need to go with an under. I could see both teams, especially early, kind of filling each other out a little bit.
Yeah.
Such a big spot for both these teams. I think Oregon, like I said, going on the road in their first true big road test, kind of filling things out in the first. I mean, Penn State's really stout on the defensive side of the ball. I think Oregon is as well. I mean, they have been so far this year. They've been outstanding on both sides of the ball. So I think I might would lean the under, but I don't really have a strong feel about this. I'm curious to get your thoughts if you like this spread, because I went back and forth. I feel like I can make a case both ways.
Yeah, so that 3.5 is really questionable to me. If it was at 2.5, I would definitely be taking Penn State, just because I'm a firm believer, especially in college football, and home field advantage. I think if this game was a neutral site game, it would probably have Oregon favored by 1.5, maybe even 2.5 points. So it's swinging 5 points into Penn State's favor because they're at home. To me, that means a lot. It shows me that not only is this Penn State crowd going to be rocking, I think it's going to be really hard for Oregon to get their offense clicking at all. If there's something that I like in this game as well as you, it's the under. I think the Oregon offense, or the Penn State offense, has been suspect to say the least when playing dominant defenses, even at home. I mean, looking at the last 30 games here, we can see Ohio State, man, that was a struggle of a game. And that was from a couple of years ago. Michigan at home, that was a struggle. Ohio State this past season, 20-13, when they play dominant in conference defenses that I think Oregon can be, they just don't get the ball rolling. And then I think Oregon on the flip side here, when faced with a talented defense in Penn State on the road, once again, it's harder to convince me that Oregon's offense is going to somehow be that good. I think the crowd noise, the opposition, the fact that they're having to do so much traveling. As a matter of fact, I was looking down here while you were talking. Actually, so Oregon went on the road to Northwestern a couple weeks ago.
Oh, that's right. Yes,
they went back home to play Oregon State. But to me, they should have rather been on a bye right here, because the fact that they went from Oregon to Chicago, back to Oregon, and now they're in Pennsylvania in a 3-week span, that's crazy to me. So I think the offense for Oregon is going to be sluggish and just out of sync. The Penn State team, they've yet to show me that they can really take advantage of their home field advantage in the last, 5-10 years. So I think I'm riding with the under here as well. All right, closing out the show here. While I'm pulling up this Alabama-Georgia game, Cam, go ahead and shout yourself out in the podcast again, because I want to make sure that people know who I'm talking to here. So go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm Cameron, Saturdays in the SEC podcast, at Saturdays in the SEC on YouTube, at Saturdays_SEC on Twitter or X. Have a TikTok channel, Saturdays in the SEC as well. Weekly podcast covering SEC football, myself and my co-host Carl Malone, who unfortunately couldn't be on with us tonight. But yeah, weekly SEC podcast. We cover the rest of college football as well, but really focusing on the SEC. Be sure to give us a subscribe, like the channel. Been getting a lot of feedback on the TikTok channel. It's been doing great, as well as the YouTube shorts that we've been putting out. So yeah, be sure to subscribe, like our channel, and just really appreciate the support. And Alexander, appreciate you having me on tonight as well.
Honestly, man, the pleasure's all mine. I love chopping it up with you guys and talking ball. Now, this game right here, it hits home for us both. I myself, an Alabama grad, you as well, a major Alabama fan, correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Man, we got a lot of spirit invested in this game, but let's just talk about it in the terms of what the matchup actually presents. Now, we saw Alabama on the road earlier this year just get shell shocked by Florida State. I don't think anybody saw, I think a lot of people predicted an upset, or at least Florida State keeping the game competitive. I don't think anybody saw Florida State coming out and punching Alabama in the mouth and the Crimson Tide just basically folding. So what do you think about this Alabama team on the road for this matchup?
I mean, that's really the big question. I mean, under Kalen DeBoer here now in year 2 is you've been two totally different teams when you're at Bryant-Denny Stadium and when you're on the road, outside of really that game at LSU last year, kind of being the aberration at this point. But that's the thing I'm looking for. Can you go on the road, face adversity? How do you respond to that? Because you did not respond to it at all at Florida State to open the season, which, again, a result that caught everyone by surprise. So this is obviously, I'm super happy. I'm super glad the way they played the last 2 weeks, but we knew after that game at Florida State, we wouldn't really know until they went on the road and played Georgia.
Yeah.
What improvements have been made? How do you handle adversity, especially on the road, again, when you get punched in the mouth? Because this Georgia team is going to punch you in the mouth sometime tomorrow night. That's really what I want to see, how they handle adversity. And I think the key for Alabama is, can you have some semblance of balance offensively? They've struggled to run the football in every game so far this year. Can they have a little bit of balance, show a little creativity maybe? Because, I mean, it's hard to run straight into the teeth of this Georgia defense.
Yeah.
They may have to get creative with it. That's what I'm curious to see with Ryan Grubb and the offensive staff. Can you create that balance? That way it's not all on Ty Simpson in this passing game shoulders, because I think there's going to be some matchups to be had, some matchup advantages to be able to hit on. But can you show that balance to be able to exploit that is what I'm going to be most looking forward to tomorrow night.
Yeah, now I actually have a question for you because I know you're big on the BO. For some reason, my browser has lost connection to my camera. I'll be working on how to repair that in just a second. But your quick thoughts here about Alabama's injury report. Jam Miller has returned. The question is Tim Keenan. I haven't seen any confirmation on that. Have you seen any confirmation on that?
So on the Wednesday injury report, he was listed as probable. I know Kalen DeBoer met with the media earlier in the week and said it was likely he's going to play. So I would fully anticipate, barring a late setback, that he would be back anchoring that defense tomorrow night. I think that's going to be a huge get for Alabama's defense. That may at times be a little suspect against the run. Having Tim Keenan back in the middle of that defense, the best run stopper that Alabama has, I think is going to be big. So I would definitely anticipate Tim Keenan playing tomorrow night. Jam Miller on the other side at running back was not on the injury report at all. He's been practicing all week, so I would fully anticipate him being in the lineup tomorrow night as well. And I think he should – not sure how many snaps he'll play, but I think he'll have the opportunity to get some run early, and he's been super effective against Georgia in the last 2 matchups. Jam Miller's caught 2 wheel routes for touchdowns. I'm curious to see how much they use him and exactly, what his status is. I doubt he'll get his full allotment of snaps.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to see just how much they'll use him and how close to 100% he is.
Yeah, the one thing that I'm curious to see here is what this Alabama second level looks like on the defensive end. Tay Lawson, or Deontay Lawson for a lot of you guys who are looking at the depth chart and statistics and whatnot, he came back and he was one of probably top 10 returning players on the defensive side in all of college football, in my opinion. Comes off a major knee injury from last year. He's not made as much noise as I thought that he would to start this season. And that's one player that I'm expecting to step up here in this spot on the road. When you've got a team that's playing one of the best teams in college football in Georgia, the captains are really the ones that you expect to step up. So I'm expecting Tay Lawson. If Alabama is going to be relevant in this game, he's going to have a big one. So looking at the spread of 2.5, to me, that seems really like the line here is thin to me. 2.5 is not a lot of points here. I think Vegas and a lot of the public has a lot of respect for Alabama. Kirby Smart, as you know, is 1-6 as head coach of Georgia against Alabama. Do you think that the Crimson Tide can pull this off?
I do think there's a path for them to get it done. I'm not going to, because like I said, I think I'm erring on the side of I want to see Alabama do it again on the road versus kind of assuming that they will and picking them. You see what Georgia's been able to do. First time Alabama's been to Athens in a long time. It just feels like a spot where Georgia should win this game. But I'm going to lean more to that side than siding, even though I think Alabama absolutely can win the game. I think there's a path there for them to win it. But like I said, I've got to see it again on the road. It's been far too inconsistent the last couple years. I got to see them go on the road, face some adversity, and answer to it. So for those reasons, I'm going to side with Georgia in this game, especially with it being under a field goal. I'm leaning Georgia here, but the one that I actually am taking is the over 53.5. I took it.
Wow.
I took it at 52.5. I think you're going to have to show. I think both teams. I'm looking at this from Alabama's perspective. If I'm Tyson, if I'm Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb, I'm thinking I got to get in the 30s to feel like I've got a chance to win this game. Kind of looking back on some of the matchups with Alabama and Georgia, I thought the over-under was a little bit low, because you're looking at last year, instant classic in Tuscaloosa, 41-34.
Yeah.
27-24 in the SEC championship, so right around the number there. 33-18 in the championship game that Georgia won, the national title game, right around the number at 51. Then you had the 3 games before that, 2018, 2020, and 2021, 35-28, and twice it was 41-24. So more often than not lately, it's been over the number or right at it. I just trust both of these offensive staffs against the opposing defenses.
Yeah.
I think with Alabama's skill, like I said, if they can show just a little bit of balance, the way Ty Simpson's been playing lately, if that offensive line gives him a little bit of time, they certainly have the weapons to be able to take advantage of Georgia's secondary. Gives me a little bit of confidence seeing what Tennessee did a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Then from Georgia's perspective, I think Gunnar Stockton showed a lot in Neyland Stadium against Tennessee. The way he was able to stand in there, deliver some balls down the field. He was a little iffy the first couple of weeks. I thought he showed a lot in that game. I thought an interesting stat, Georgia's defense has not sacked the quarterback yet this year. So if you're Ty Simpson and Alabama's offense, that's got to give you a little bit of confidence. Alabama also hasn't been sacking the quarterback at a super high level either. So I just trust both of these offensive staffs, and I think they're going over the number. I think the recent history shows us that, and I think both teams are going to be able to take advantage of that a little bit tomorrow night.
Yeah, and Alabama. So I'll talk about the spread here and the over under. I think Alabama on the road. We've yet to see them play a good team on the road and win. At Tennessee last year, at Vanderbilt, at Oklahoma versus Michigan in a bowl game. I mean, the Michigan game, is kind of a wash just because it's a bowl game, not a playoff game. But at Florida State was the one that really rocked me. I thought Alabama was going to be at least a 9-win team, maybe a 10-win team. But that Florida State win got me questioning anything and everything. I started thinking, as an Alabama fan, holy crap, we're going to watch Alabama go 6-6. But, the Wisconsin game kind of restored my confidence, especially defensively. Looking at this game, 38-14 with Wisconsin. 7 of those points came off of a kick return touchdown, and the other 7 came with, I believe, 2 minutes left in that game. So Alabama's defense pretty much pitched a shutout. Very surprised to see, well, not actually very surprised because Wisconsin's starting quarterback was out that game. But I was surprised to see Alabama's level of physicality. They played extremely physical, which is not something that I've seen so far from the Kalen DeBoer era. But the fact that it's on the road at Georgia, Kirby Smart has yet to see Bama in this spot. Not to mention, Cam, I don't think we've talked about this yet, but the fact that Kirby Smart is riding on a 33 game win streak in Athens, that's what makes me think, even as an Alabama fan, that Georgia is going to win this game -2.5. As far as the over/under goes, I don't have any plays in particular. There is one sharp play. Now, this is kind of getting into the nitty-gritty of things, and I'll see what your thoughts on this, Cam, are. Alabama, regardless of which game we're talking about, except for this Michigan one, is phenomenal. I think they might be the best team in the country in the first quarter, period. On script, Alabama executes practically flawlessly. That Kalen DeBoer, Ryan Grubb script is outstanding offensively. So this play to me is a little out there, but I've got Alabama winning the first quarter, but I don't necessarily think that they win the game. Georgia, on the other end, has not had great first quarters in the Kirby Smart era recently. He's only covering a half-point spread in 30% of their third quarters of the last 10 games. So I like Alabama money line in the first quarter. Cam, what do you think about that play?
No, you make a great point for real. I mean, yeah, the first drive of that Florida State game is a prime example.
Yeah.
The last time Alabama was on the road, that was a beautiful opening script. If only the rest of the game would have went similar to that, it'd been awesome. But unfortunately, it went south very quickly after that the rest of the day. But no, you're dead on the money. I mean, it was a beautiful script to open the game. Putting together, I think it was a 13, 14 play scoring drive. Florida State was able to answer back. I'm curious to see too, because I think DeBoer and company will take the ball. Like if they win the toss, I think they're going to take the ball. And I think Georgia, if they win the toss, is going to defer. That just more their style. So I think Alabama's probably going to get the football first in this game to try to maybe quiet the crowd a little bit early on. But yeah, I think some points are going to be scored in this game. I think both offenses are going to be able to respond. Even when adversity hits a little bit. But, yeah, I like that first quarter play for sure. And I think for Alabama to have a chance to win the game, obviously it's a 60-minute game, especially when you're playing Georgia. I mean, just ask Tennessee that. But it is key for Alabama to get off to a fast start tomorrow night if they really want a chance. I'm not going to feel comfortable if they're in catch-up mode in the second half and having to throw the ball every single down. So it's key for Alabama to get off to a hot start to have a shot.
Yeah, so Kalen DeBoer, to me, and the offense that he runs, it seems very, I mean, I know that there's some like RPO stuff and whatnot, but it seems very West Coast centric. I mean, obviously the West Coast is more of a pro style offensive scheme, but it's very methodical. It relies heavily on the run game, especially on off tackle runs, and then spreading that out with some play action. I kind of view that this Alabama team with Ty Simpson as like the 2019 San Francisco 49ers. Remember with Jimmy Garoppolo and how they executed pretty much flawlessly their offensive game plan going all the way into the Super Bowl. And even there, the only thing that prevented them from winning the Super Bowl was the fact that Jimmy G is not Patrick Mahomes, right? Here with Ty Simpson, I do think he's one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC. But like you said, if this Alabama team goes down 10, 14 points by maybe the middle of the second quarter or even into the third quarter, I just don't see how this Alabama team is going to be able to claw its way back. Asking Ty Simpson to throw the ball like 35 plus times, I think it's a recipe for disaster. He's a great game manager. I think he's one of the best game managers in college football, which I don't think is disrespectful. I guess characteristic. I think it's a really good one because it shows me that you're not going to make the crucial mistake. But to ask him to be a game maker is, in my opinion, where the Crimson Tide would go wrong. So I think if Alabama's going to win this game, they've got to start hot early. The scripts have always been good under the DeBoer era. I mean, even in some of these losses like Tennessee, I mean, the defense has been able to hold up against Oklahoma. That opening drive with Oklahoma looked pretty damn good with that 3 points that they put up. That was a good Oklahoma defense as well. So with that being said, what do you think about the over-under? I know you said you like the points or going over, I guess, but how confident are you about that over-under?
I think I'm pretty confident, honestly. Like I said, I
Okay.
have my own money on it, so I'm going with the over. I can speak for Carden. That was like one of his best bets of the week. He loved the over in this game.
Wow.
He thinks both offenses are going to, and I agree with him. I think they're going to be able to make some hay against one another. And I know it is in a way weird to think that way because you think of obviously Georgia being a defense first team, and Alabama historically being the defense first team, and even coming into this year, like Alabama's defense was supposed to be their strength. I mean, they were 11th in points per game allowed last year, and I still think they can be a really good defense. But I think it's going to be a tough matchup for both these defenses. Like you said with Ty Simpson, I think on script, on time, he is about as good as anybody in the country.
Yeah.
The ball has barely hit the ground the last 2 weeks. And I know ULM's not great and Wisconsin's not that good either. But if this offensive line gives him time, he can absolutely make some plays. But like you said, though, it doesn't need to get into that type of scenario where he's having to throw the ball 35, 40 times, play from behind. There has to be some semblance of balance here. And as I said earlier, you're not going to make your living running the football straight into the teeth of this Georgia defense. So I think they may have to get creative with it. They've handed the ball to Jeremy Bernard a few times on some outside sweep type of play.
Yeah.
Maybe get the ball in Ryan Williams' hands. And it may even be where it may technically be a pass play, but more of an extension of the run game. Like you may have some of that kind of action. So it may not be necessary direct handoffs to Jam Miller or Kevin Riley, but I think you have to find a way to get some balance without Ty Simpson, like you said, having to drop back 35 plus times, make something happen. If it can be more balanced, I think that sets him up for the best situation to be successful. And I think for Alabama's defense, great sign to get against Wisconsin. And for me, the best sign was forcing a couple takeaways. I think they're going to need to do that tomorrow night. I think they're going to need to get at least one takeaway, maybe two. If they can they forced several a year ago in Tuscaloosa. If they can do that again, I think they'll have a fairly good chance to win this game. But if they're not able to get any takeaways, I see a hard path there for Alabama to find a way to win this game.
Okay. All right. Last question. Most important player in this game tomorrow on either team?
Oh, man, that's a good question. Let's see. I think this may be an obvious one, but I think for Alabama, getting Tim Keenan back is huge, and just how healthy he is, because this is with the scheme that Alabama runs defensively, they've given up some yards on the ground. Getting definitely your best run stopper up front is huge. I'm just curious to see, though, how healthy he is, like how close to 100% is. Can he, coming off that tightrope injury, can be a little tricky coming back right away. You saw it with Tua Tagovailoa. You saw it with Brock Bowers in these matchups before. That is a tough injury for a guy of his size, especially to come back from. Just how healthy he is, that's going to be a big key for me. Jamarian Latham, a guy they rotate on that defensive line, had a neck injury this week. Sounded pretty serious, like he's been in the hospital all week.
Yeah.
Had neck surgery. So Jemai Bayman for Alabama, big defensive line. I said his name wrong actually, but number 92, he's out for the season as well. So they're a little bit thin on that defensive line. So Tim Keenan and him being healthy to me is probably the biggest player maybe on both sides of this matchup.
Okay, so my best or my most important player in this game is actually kind of a I guess you would call it an underdog play. Keon Sapp coming into this game is huge. Looking at Alabama at the start of last season, he was the quote unquote big playmaker. Had several interceptions to start the season. I think he had one or two versus Georgia in that game, and it's what got Alabama up 21-7 by the end of the first. I think if there's anybody on this Alabama defense who's going to do something spectacular, which is what Alabama's going to need to win this game, it's going to be him or maybe Bray Hubbard, who has been kind of in the boiler pot so far this season. Got a lot of criticism after the Florida State game, stepped up big with 2 interceptions versus Wisconsin. But I think that Alabama secondary, someone back there is going to have to make that play. But with that being said, we're going to close out this here stream. Cameron, again, thank you so much for coming on. One last shout out for you guys. I want to make sure that people know where you're coming from.
Yeah, for sure. First off, thank you so much for having me. And I know Corbin wishes he could have made it as well. But yeah, I'm Cameron Gossett with Saturdays in the SEC podcast, at Saturdays in the SEC on YouTube. Same on TikTok as well. And then at Saturdays_SEC on X. Would love for you guys to give us a like and subscribe to the channel. TikTok channel's been doing great lately, same with the YouTube shorts. So be sure to give us a like and subscribe. Give us your feedback. We love hearing feedback from the viewers. So just really appreciate your time. And always enjoy talking some college football. And I hope everyone enjoys their Saturday tomorrow because it's going to be an unbelievable day of college football.
Yeah, man, I'm so excited about it. Thank you once again for coming on. One last shout out to doinksports.com, guys. We're looking at all of these lines live here. We can see the spread, the over-under. We got the player props down here. You can see every single college football game. If you're interested in checking out the product, you can look at some of these major ones for free. Be sure to use code PLIZONT, that's PLIZONT, for 25% off of any purchase here. But thanks again, Cam, for coming on. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Thanks so much for watching. We will see